So, ladies and gentlemen, brand new day is coming out, and we have a kiss between Peter and MJ. This especially will be profound as it will be a culmination of the longing Peter has for his love and MJ's memory of Peter completely being wiped, but still having a longing in her subconscious for him.
Chop! बिल्कुल चुप!
Okay, fair enough. There is another movie we plan to give a UA certificate to. It has acts of assault masked as romantic gestures, with the camera consistently panning on the girl's body parts.
Dear God, it's beautiful.
The inconsistency of the censor board and how their moral conscience oscillates from movie to movie is genuinely tough to keep up with. A few years ago, we used to hear stories about the issues with the CBFC sparingly. You know, in the 2010s, we could hear problems that were associated with the release of Urta Punjab and how it may show the dark realities of the state, but how it would adversely impact the perception of it too on the global stage. The entire industry stood up against such vague diktats being created for censorship. There were thematic issues with lesser known movies like Mohalla Assi, but there were some absolutely wild cases that upon reflection will genuinely make you facepalm on the problems we concerned ourselves with but let other more problematic movies go scot-free. Do you remember the movie Lipstick Under My Burqa? This is an extremely impactful movie that released in 2017 in Indian theatres. What's absolutely wild is that the censor board had denied even giving the certificate to the film under the grounds of there are contagious scenes, abusive words, audio pornography, and a bit sensitive touch towards a particular section of society. This was verbatim their quote. An appeal led to it being considered and the movie being released in theatres with 16 to 20 cuts. A film that had absolutely no business in being dealt with such aggression on the editing table. The most wild story revolves around Padmavat for me, which anyway was dealing with controversy for the assumption, mind you, assumption in that the film showcases Rani Padmavati in a sensuous scene with Alauddin Khilji. Based on this assumption that the film may be shooting such a steamy scene, the set was wrecked and director Sanjay Leela Bansali was physically assaulted. Several fringe groups called for the ban of the film. There were threats to Deepika Padukone's life, and even though the Supreme Court of India dismissed the petition to stop the release of the film, the courts went further in lifting the ban announced in states like Rajasthan, Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh to uphold the freedom of speech. The CBFC suggested 5 modifications to the film that included changing the title from Padmavati to Padmavat and digitally covering the midriff of Deepika Padukone as she danced on Ghumar. The film was celebrated and became a huge hit, and the same violent fringe groups were MIA post the release because their assumptions that the film will showcase the Rajput king in a poor light were squashed, as Shahid Kapoor in every scene mentioned their might and honor. So death threats, physical assaults, calls for bans, all based on assumption, were pushed under the carpet as if nothing happened after the movie came out. This was still the case of the censor board not buckling under pressure, still holding on to the sanctity that all forms of film should exist in the public domain. But in the 2020s, we have reached such an odd juncture that I genuinely believe it's the worst that it has ever been in the 21st century. I say this because just a few days ago, I sat for a movie directed by Olivia Wilde titled The Invite, and you realize that censorship is not just restricted to scenes being abruptly cut or blurred, but even advisories of smoking and alcohol that are plastered on the screen. I sat for this movie with a quarter of the frame, I kid you not, a quarter of the frame not only appearing when the film showcased characters drinking or smoking, but throughout the film. This massive bold text appeared in front of our eyes and it was so jarring, and all of this for an A-rated film because adults are not wise enough to know what's good or bad for them. The treatment of international films and the hypocrisy showcased in comparison to the terrible movies we produce is astounding. I mean, you may remember if you watched Superman in theaters, the scene of the most harmless and beautifully shot kiss between Clark and Lois Lane was abruptly chopped off. It was not even marginally in its staging or depiction, and this act of even censoring it or cutting it abruptly generally seems like the Indian households with vigilant helicopter parents staring at you the moment there is something even marginally intimate on TV. What the censor board does not realize is that the more one curtails harmless scenes like this, the more taboo one makes the opposite being in close proximity with each other, the more isolated they make the two sections this society. Who am I to even say something? Because when it comes to movies in India, especially commercial movies, this need to censor anything marginally provocative goes completely out of the window. Think about a UA certificate film like Spider-Man Brand New Day and the kiss between MJ and Peter we are all going to see in theaters being censored. I in the introduction presented you an example like Peddi that went absolutely scot-free on the chopping table. You literally had Janvi Kapoor being an object of desire and being harassed throughout the film. Nothing was cut. Let me tell you a few more examples of UA certificate movies and what they were allowed to showcase on the big screen in all of its glory. You remember the awful comedy that was Houseful 5? Yes, it got a UA certificate, and the line is not even drawn towards the women being scantily clad. But just to refresh your memory, do you remember the character of Saundarya Sharma? She played a lawyer called Lucy, and she wears these body-hugging dresses, which leads to the character simply staring at her. In a scene as she drops paperwork, the characters try to get a glimpse of her bosom. Ecstatic when she drops the papers again, Chunky Pandey says, "Acha hai ki ye Pushpa nahi, varna jhukti nahi." And Shreyas Talpade, while creating binoculars with a paper, states, "Is paper mein zoom kyun nahi hai?" When in an altercation, she is told to raise her hands, it's simply done so that her garter belt can be viewed and her legs can be flashed on the big screen. How does this just pass by without it getting an A certificate? Think about another commercial movie with a UA certificate like Pushpa that released in 2021. I mean, the main scene involves Pushpa stalking her and urging her to kiss him in exchange for 5,000 rupees. It's very clear that acts of abuse, stalking and leching at women pass, but a kiss between two consenting adults is where the board draws the line. When you restrict people from what they can and cannot watch, when you alter the intention of the director of how he wants his art to be seen, this inadvertently pushes the audience further to illegal acts like engaging with piracy. It's like a kid who is coddled and protected all their life. They are bound to go insane when they get a small taste of freedom. Whereas if you were just mindful of what is being seen and do not create this draconian restriction of what is taboo and what is not, you will have a population who does not make a big deal with themes like intimacy in film. See, I'm not here to absolutely villainize the board as some dictatorial body that has absolutely lost its marbles. We saw recently with a movie like Jananayagan, a movie that is a manifesto more than an action entertainer with its leading hero, where its release prior to the elections actually would have been a point of contention and where the censor board's stance in delaying its release made sense. But the absolute inconsistency on some of its decisions is where the audience gets frustrated. I support what Sandeep Reddy Vanga believes when it comes to movies that get an A certificate.
The rating we are giving is A. Done. You are not supposed to put a scissor on my bloody throat.
Absolutely.
I hate that shit.
If the assumption is that the movie has mature themes suited for only adults, then the movie should be shown in its raw state as the director intends, because adults in this country should not be dependent on an independent body to choose what is suitable and what is not for an audience above 18. I say this because this is not only a moral judgment of a select few, but it also is an indication that the body believes that the Indian audience is dumb and cannot process themes in movies on their own accord. See, I get it with nudity, where movies need to blur or mask scenes. I mean, we talk about terrible CGI we are subject to in movies in India, but I think nothing has been better than the work done on Florence Pugh in Oppenheimer, handing her a make-believe black dress even before the integration of AI had become normalized in film. But when it comes to violence, the disparity between what flies with Indian movies and what doesn't with Hollywood movies is just absolute hypocrisy. I mean, think about a phenomena like Obsession and the scene of Nikki smashing the face of Bear's friend in the car being completely cut in the theatrical edit. Are we really supposed to believe that the Indian audience is not mature enough to see such gore? Do you want me to reference Indian movies with an A certificate that have showcased far worse? You remember Bobby Deol essaying his own wife on his wedding day while lathering her entire face with blood? I mean, Kill had some of the most slick action choreography, and we saw knives being stabbed in one's eye and blood spurting out. We had Arjun Rampal as Major Iqbal putting hooks on an Indian agent and snapping it as a torture technique. We in the opening action scene saw Jaskirat shoot a guy in the so much so that the bullet went through his head and made his brain mush. Like, who are we kidding? We saw Marco, where a literal fetus was snatched away from a pregnant lady's belly. Who is creating these lines where one thing is acceptable and the other isn't? I mean, I'm not even getting to the real problem of the censor board, where when it comes to any of the files or the stories, they give creators free reign to focus on whatever themes it wants, with it never coming on the chopping board or being requested for changes. But the absolute harassment as a filmmaker that one deals with when the movie is critical of the establishment establishment focuses on caste discrimination or anything contrarian to what the dispensation wants to communicate, it deals with weeks, months, and sometimes years of problems with censor screenings, revising committees, and sometimes the movies just not releasing. Everything should exist in the public domain, everything, so that the public compliments, criticizes it, ignores it, but everything should be accessible to them so that one makes their own judgment. Think about the international movies like Monkey Man and Santosh that did not get a theatrical release in India. Satluj, after a 48-hour stint on Z5, gets removed even though it had no legal obligation to go through the censor board as it was a digital release. A movie of Dibakar Banerjee like Tees still remains unreleased, and it is only after a hard-fought battle that Phule gets a theatrical release. A movie based on caste discrimination was being requested to not use caste discriminatory language. This is a way deeper conversation because it's very clear that through the medium of films, the dispensation wants to control not only your vote, but the themes that get explored through the medium of art and culture. So that one cites not what they see with the naked eye in real life, but what they see on the big screen with the elusive statements of based on true events and is convinced that it is recorded history. The social and religious themes filmmakers want to focus on, especially if it is contrarian or anti-establishment, will always be a long-drawn battle while the CBFC pretends to be genuinely an independent body. But I think when it comes to silly elements like gore in an A certificate movie or a simple sweet kiss in a UA certified superhero film, the body really needs to stop acting like conservative boomers and just relax for a change. And that was a video, guys. Write down in the comments below, what do you think about this inconsistency that exists with the CBFC? Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.